Alright, now for this video we're going to go through and discuss moving our data from our text files into Excel, our formulas for creating the dependent variables for our eye tracking assessments, and then also for transferring through macros the first fixation information during the actual engagement-disengagement task. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up some information, open up some files on Dropbox that correspond to what we have already previously created in terms of the formulas and the Excel macros for the Deer OA study. Okay, so we'll go into ACE Lab, go into Studies, Deer Study, and then Deer OA. Okay, so what I'm going to pull up here is I'm going to pull up the eye tracking data file. So we're going to open up just one of these participants here. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be opening up the view file from one of our previous participants. Okay. All right, so what we want here is we're going to want the formulas and information from that corresponds to the file names that we have for the Deer OA task. So I'm going to highlight both these first two rows. And you can ignore what the highlight is for some of these particular variables right now. Click on Copy. Okay, now we're going to File and Open the data that we just recorded or exported. Okay, so we're going to go to Deer OA, SJ Practice, Deer OA Practice, all files. Okay, and then we're going to get our SJ View file opened up here. Okay, I'm going to click on Finish. Okay, so here's our file. First thing I want to do, or before anything else, is to save this as an Excel workbook. Okay, so we're going to just change this to Excel workbook and then click Save. Okay, now from here I'm going to be pasting the formulas and values into this new SJ View file. So notice that I want to make sure that I'm starting in I1, and then for I didn't like how I did that there. Okay, so I'm just going to go back and copy again. And then I'm going to paste for FX for the formulas. Okay. All right, so now that you're going to see, you should see that the formulas now correspond to these values that are right over here. So the fixation time information for the percent discussed and percent neutral, because this is a control discussed file, or control discussed stimulus. So then percent discussed should be the fixation portion for the actual AOI. So you see the discussed AOI corresponds to F3, and then F2 corresponds to the neutral. This value is larger than this value, so this percentage should be larger than this percentage, which means that the ratio score should be greater than 0, and that's what we have here. Okay, so that's basically all you have to do in terms of getting the formulas listed over here. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to go through and change the values for the RSP for response, because these response values are actually the same ones as this previous participant. They don't necessarily correspond to the response data that we have for this participant. So I'm going to save this file. I'm going to close out of the 4003 file. And now I'm going to open up the response Excel file. Okay. All right, so we have SJ View, and we want SJ Response. Okay. I click on Finish. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to save this file as well. So I'm going to File, Save As, Now what I'm saving this as is a macro-enabled Excel workbook, because we're going to be running macros through this particular file in order to copy cells from this spreadsheet to the view spreadsheet. So then go down to where it says macro-enabled workbook, click on that, and then click Save. Okay. Now what I want to do is I actually need to get the code for the macro from one of the other sources. So I can go back here and look at response macro, which is this Microsoft Word file. I'm going to open that up. So there's a couple of ways that we can get this code. We can get this code from this actual Word file, or code from a prior participant. So the macro directly from there. This is usually sometimes easier to get access to instead of having to keep opening older files to get access to this. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to get it from the actual this Word file. So I'm going to Control-C to copy. And then I'm going to then go over to View, click on Macros, and then just click on the View macro. I'm just going to call this Response. Doesn't really matter what name we call it. I'm going to click on Create. I'm going to highlight all the information here and then just Control V to paste. Okay, so this is the code now for this macro. All right. Now I am going to change a couple of things so that this corresponds to the names that I have for the two spreadsheets I'm working with, the SJ response and the SJ view. Okay. So what you'll notice here is that typically what we do is we put the participant number underscore response, participant number underscore view, which is basically what I did. For this one, it just wasn't a numeric code. It was just an alpha code based on the letters that we had. Okay. And so what you're going to notice here is that for the first portion is going to be the name of the file. Okay. And then this second portion where it says sheets is the name of the actual worksheet, which is down here. Okay. So I'm going to go in and change this now to SJ for response. And XLSM is the path for macro workbook. And then I'm going to change this to SJ response. Okay. Now I also need to change this to view for SJ view. And I actually have this as an Excel workbook, not a macro workbook for the view file. So it's XLSX. And then the sheet, again, is SJ. And you can just check that again by looking at SJ view, SJ underscore view. SJ view is the name of the sheet in the bottom left-hand corner. Okay. All right. And so then all we need to do is we need to just highlight the code and then click on this Run Sub User Form green button. Okay. So it ran. So now what we can do is we can take a look and see that, so this was, 500 and some milliseconds before. Now it's changed to correspond to the value in the SJ response Excel file. Okay, and you can see it right here. All right. So since this is a disengage trial, we're going to be looking at the reaction time to looking at the neutral face, because they're disengaging from emotional, going towards neutral. So this should be the value that's over here, and it is 257.7. corresponds to 257.7 here. All right. And you can scroll down to do a double check to make sure that that's the case. Usually what I do is go to the very last one, the very last trial with the response, and that's ET28 here, 263.6, and then I'll scroll down to engage happy 28, 263.6, 263.6. Okay, so we have all of the DVs that we need for the engagement and disengagement task. So what we do is we just Control S. And then what we could do here is just immediately copy and paste all of these values into our SPSS database for the Deer OA task. Okay, and then we can go ahead and save our file here as well. So it'll keep this macro available for this participant. So if for whatever reason we had to go in and rerun it, it's good to have it already available to us, and we don't have to go back and recopy and paste and change the file names again. All right, so the last thing that I want to do is just to quickly go through some of the data that we process for the video task. I'm going to close out of the response macro. Okay, so I'm just going to open up Excel again. All right, so I'm going to go into the Dropbox and go into the Deer Study folders. And then we have the practice data. Okay, so now we need all files. Now the files that we need this time are going to be the mood rating, the video AOI, and the video fixation. Okay, so I'm going to start by pulling out data for the video fixation first and foremost, because we want to calculate a AOI for the particular, or a percent fixation for the video AOI. Okay, so these are the total fixation times for all three of our videos. Okay, the one that we care about mostly here is going to be our champ fixation. So what I'm going to do then next is from here open up the champ AOI. Okay, so we're looking now at video AOI. Okay, so then these are all of the fixations to each of the 4 AOIs during the champ video. So first and foremost, I'm just going to sum up the total fixation across these 4 AOIs. Okay, and then I'm going to copy over the total fixation time for the whole video. Okay. And then now I'm just going to do a quick little formula to divide out the AOI fixation time from the total fixation time. Okay, and so that's our total fixation time. So 82.5% of the time the participant was fixated, they were fixated on the areas of interest within the champ video. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as an Excel file. So Excel workbook. And I'm just going to, I don't need to necessarily save this because, you know, I didn't do any formulas on this one. It'll just save as a text file, and that's fine. We can open it up and, you know, put, you know, information in as we see fit. So I'm just going to close out of that. And then the last thing that you need to worry about is just what you need to do in terms of the mood ratings. Now, we don't necessarily have to open up the mood ratings through an Excel sheet, but sometimes if we're looking at this data with some of our PCs, it doesn't like opening up some of these things in Notepad. So what I do is I just open it up through Excel, just so we can copy those numbers down. Okay, so that's going to be in our mood rating. And then these are the values that you're just going to directly input into SPSS. Okay, so there are columns for each of the 4 mood ratings, and you're just going to type in those 4. And that's basically all you need to do with those. Okay. So just like with the engagement and disengagement task, there are columns and variables for the total AOI fixation time, the total fixation time for all of the videos, the percent fixation, and then for each of the 4 mood ratings for the video task. Okay? And that is all that you need to do in terms of processing the eye tracking data for this project. There are times when we may get into peopleometry metrics for these various tasks, but at the current time, we're not digging into that right now. Okay.